Greetings, welcome, and good day. You are now tuned into the 13th episode of the Seasoned Vet Podcast. I'm so happy you can make it to another chapter of this show. This week, we're joined by a trailblazing member of Coast Guard royalty, a barrier-breaking member of Black history, and an iconic member of the E9 Club. Command Master Chief Rashaun Morris began her career as the only Black woman on the Coast Guard Honor Guard while she served. She went on to become a yeoman and had the pleasure of working under the late Master Chief Angela McShann, who now has a cutter named after her. Master Chief Morris wrapped up her career by having a retirement ceremony so unique that even amidst a global pandemic, it was still a topic of discussion at the Flag Officers meeting the following week. With a career this majestic, it's no wonder her favorite Beyonce song is Halo. Over the course of her 34-year career, Master Chief Morris managed to rack up over 50 ribbons and medals to show for her work. And after making her grand exit, Master Chief Morris has kept busy by providing mentorship to a group of young girls. Now, in 2016, Master Chief Morris made Coast Guard history by becoming the first African-American, man or woman, service member to hold the position of the 1st Coast Guard District's Reserve Command Master Chief. That's why it's my privilege and my delight to name this episode the Gold Standard. Friend! So, Master Chief, is it okay if I call you that? Or is there another name you would prefer?
Rashaun. You can call me Rashaun. It doesn't matter. I'm good. Seriously.
All right. Well, Rashaun, if I may ask, what is your connection to the service? What?
My connection to the service is, through the Coast Guard, which I joined way back in 1987.
Get it.
That's my connection to the service.
Nice. So, do you have any family that was in the service? Were you the first of your lineage to serve? We called a play cousin. I didn't know she was in the Coast Guard until she showed up at my school while working home with her recruiter just out of boot camp, and I was in the 6th grade. And she showed up at my school for career day, and that's how I was introduced for the first time to the Coast Guard. So that was your play cousin that showed up to your school when you were in 6th grade, and she was in the Coast Guard?
Yes.
Wow.
She had just joined the Coast Guard and was fresh out of boot camp. I'm from the Midwest, Kansas City, Missouri, so never heard of the Coast Guard nor saw the Coast Guard where I grew up until, in being introduced in the 6th grade.
Kansas City, my goodness. Is there any coast around there?
Not really. No, there's rivers and lakes, and that's about it. So, no chance outside of her, there was no chance I probably would have heard of the Coast Guard.
All right. Well, good for you and good for her. Were there any second choices of branch that you would have joined if not for the Coast Guard?
The Air Force was probably number 2.
Okay.
But Coast Guard was definitely number 1. And then, and since then, my younger cousin, probably about 7 or so years ago, joined the Coast Guard. So it's been the 3 of us.
Man, y'all are a Coast Guard family from the Midwest. That is wild.
It is. Not the norm, that's for sure.
Well, Rashaun, how do you feel about your time in uniform? Does any particular time period stand out to you?
I would say the beginning and the end. Love the middle as well, but going into the ceremonial honor guard I was elated to be able to be a part of that. I loved every bit of it, as challenging as it was, and it was just a great foundation. One of the things that stands out is, kind of our ethos was being in the honor guard because it was all about excellence. It was not just your time in the honor guard, but moving forward as well. So it was a commitment to excellence as a way of life. So for me, that was a really good foundation. And my last tour in the Coast Guard, just having the amazing opportunity as a gold badge to, kind of cast that net wide to make a greater impact before I departed was the biggest responsibility, but the biggest reward as well. So
that's amazing, Rashaun. You were in the honor guard?
I was, and loved it. Was the only African-American female.
Of course.
Yes, and so I got a lot of crash courses in a lot of things fast, coming in at 18.
Wow. I guess now's a good time to tell our listeners, Miss Morris, Master Chief, Rashaun is a tall lady. I'm looking at her profile. She's a tall, pretty lady as well. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
absolutely. So this whole honor guard thing, yeah, that's actually very, I guess, normal for a person that you're, look, as a lifelong short, you have my jealousy forever.
Oh, thank you very much. That's the first time I appreciated being tall, was joining the honor guard, because I was on the short end of the height there. So.
You were first time short.
Yes, I was like, no, I'm tall, not here. So.
Right on. You went from honor guard to gold badge. That's phenomenal. What was your job while in? What was your rate?
So I was a yeoman.
Get it? Yo, hold on.
loosely.
Because we have a friend in common, and he left that part out. Tyrone Anderson, you owe me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Tyrone. I know Tyrone very well.
Yeah, he's the reason I reached out to you. Of course, he spoke highly of you. He speaks highly of a lot of people. But he left that part out. Like, he left out the part where you were a yeoman, because I look for yeoman. I can't believe this man. Tyrone Anderson, how dare you?
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome. Yes, he left out a critical detail.
He did. All right. I'm gonna stop tripping now. All right, fellow yeoman, love it. Hey, you got out before. I'm sorry, when did you get out?
I was officially retired August 1st of 2021.
2021? Master Chief,
Yes,
you were in during the pandemic?
I was.
Yo, that means your retirement ceremony had to have been in like maybe May or June, something like that?
Well, believe it or not, my retirement ceremony was in October of the previous year.
Wow.
I was supposed to be retiring technically October 1st, but just before that, I had a shoulder injury, and they basically told me that I needed to be retained in the Coast Guard, but everything was all set in stone for my ceremony. All the work had been done, so we went on ahead with my ceremony, and then I was kind of low-key healing from my surgery, from January up until the end of July of the following year.
Wow. I'm sorry about your shoulder injury. Are you
no,
better
thank
now?
you. But it is. But technically, my retirement ceremony was even more in the trenches of, the pandemic, because it was in October of the previous year.
Yeah.
But fortunately, just networking is so important. One of a really good command master chief down at the air station in Cape Cod extended an invitation for me to have my ceremony there because of the hangar doors. And within the pandemic, because the hangar doors are so big, if they're open, it's not considered indoors. Mm-hmm. And so I was not limited with who I could invite. So it was, someone said between 200 and 300 people there.
Wow.
All spread out, of
God.
course. But it was great. They gave me an incredible send-off.
That is incredible. Wow. Master Chief, that's quite a retirement story.
Oh, it was, I don't know if I've ever felt so loved. They even had an all-female, as a favor, they had an all-female honor guard, color guard team sent up from the ceremonial honor guard in D.C. I'd never seen all-female color guard detail within the ceremonial honor guard in D.C., and they sent them up to do colors in my ceremony, and as a bigger surprise, they sent a 5-man drill team to perform in my ceremony.
Wow.
Because of I think at that time I was the most senior person still in the Coast Guard that had served in the honor guard, so I was very, very blessed that they did that for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I was told by the District 1 DXR that the following week, they have a flag conference call every week, and with all of the flag officers, and my ceremony was a matter of discussion in the flag conference, so I thought that was pretty cool.
I've never heard anything like this, Master Chief. That is the
most... Neither had I. I still run into people that were there, and they tell me, I've never seen a retirement ceremony like that. Admiral Tianson, who was the admiral that I was probably the closest to. He flew in from Florida to be my guest speaker. Yeah, it was amazing. The VIPs that showed up, the Master Chief of the Coast Guard, he spoke at my ceremony. Was a good friend of mine, Jason Vanderhayden. So it was great. I mean, like I said, I couldn't have asked for anything better than that.
That is
in the best way.
That is phenomenal, man. This sounds better than the officer ceremonies that I've been at, that I've had to serve at.
Yeah. It was beyond anything I could have ever expected. So my project officer, I will bow to him every time I see him. He's my hero.
Master Chief, I'm sorry I keep calling you this. It's slipping at this point. So
No, I get it. I still call certain people. I'm like, I don't know. It's going to take a long time for me to not call certain people by their rank, even after they've left and asked me many times. You don't need to call me that. I'm like, okay. So.
You're such a big deal. I can't help it. Like truly, I've never met you as a Master Chief. I've only met you as of today, and I consider us to be friends now. But
Absolutely.
But you are such a big deal. Like the whole Master Chief thing, it keeps slipping. So sorry, but also not sorry.
No. No, thank you. That's very kind of you.
Of course. How do you think your experience in the military could have been improved? Or could it have been?
I think it could have definitely been improved. I would say, I was literally just telling my daughter yesterday, money never motivated me. I kind of wish it did, but it never motivated me. So when I first came in, I tell my daughter, don't get comfortable, continue to push forward. So when I first came in, I was loving being in the honor guard, but as far as getting promoted to E3, I wasn't even thinking excelling in the job instead of excelling as far as a career goes. So I ended up being one of the more senior seaman apprentices, but once I saw other people coming in after me getting promoted before me, I said, oh no, I've got to kick it into gear, and this is not good, and so, and I say that because in the honor guard, unlike going from boot camp to, a cutter or going to, a small boat station, we didn't have to wait 6 months to get promoted to E3. We didn't have to get practical signed off. All we had to do was take the test and pass it, and we can get promoted. So I didn't have those obstacles, and yet I got complacent. I wish it wouldn't have taken other people getting ahead of me to be that motivator to excel, but once, the light was lit under my rear end, I was good after that. But, so that's probably one thing that could have been different. Had I had, maybe good mentorship.
Right on. So you were the senior ranking E2?
It seemed to be. As a punishment, they make you be go on the gate guard duty, which I did. And you'd have thought that would have done it too. But once I started seeing people getting promoted before me, I was like, oh shoot, I got to kick it into gear. I got to start studying. So, yeah, looking at the younger me, I'm like, wow, what was I thinking? Shake my head.
Look, you retired as a Master Chief. This clearly didn't slow much down, all right?
Yeah, true.
Master Chief, tell me about a time you experienced something, either good or bad, that you know to be unique to you because you are a Black woman.
I would say early on when I was in the honor guard, unfortunately, one of the non-rates that it was lots of non-rates there in the honor guard, but one of them in particular, I do believe, obviously I can't say definitively, but there wasn't a large number of women in the honor guard, very small number, maybe 10%, if that, or less. And I was the only, as I mentioned, African-American woman. And one of the guys there that I didn't even know, because as a junior person, you really didn't hang out with the senior non-rates because you were sort of like the freshmen with the seniors. It just didn't happen. So this person wasn't in my circle at all, but he proceeded to say horrible things about me, and not the other women. But I didn't even know him, nor did we even have any kind of friendship relationship. And I happened to be talking to a friend of mine from another branch of service because we did a lot of joint service ceremonies, and he explained to me that basically this person had painted me out to be a $5 prostitute.
Wow.
And, and if it was even partially true, that would have been something, but it couldn't have been the furthest from the truth. And I thought, and they told me this guy is not your friend. And I'm thinking, why would he say something so horrific about me and no one else, within, the women? And the only thing that was different for me than the other women was the color of my skin. So, definitively, is that why? I don't know. I think he had an issue with women, but I think he had an issue with, me as a black woman even more so. But, I obviously couldn't prove it, but that's how I felt.
All right, you're not going to say definitively, but I will. And also, forgive my language, but fuck this guy. I hate him.
It was unfortunate.
I do not like him. He's trash. Did anything ever transpire from that? Did you report it?
I did, and that kind of goes into one of your other questions. I did report it. I did report it, and I felt like I had to keep coming back to, the leadership that I was reporting it to. Has anything happened? Has anything transpired? That transparency was not there. And then ultimately, they made him go to sexual harassment classes because obviously sexual harassment was kind of new on the circuit. That it wasn't a lot of discussion about that back in, the late 80s. And they made him go to sexual harassment classes and gave him a negative page 7. And I thought that was okay until fast forward, sometime later, we had an African-American male in the honor guard that did something very similar to one of the white women in the honor guard. They sent him to mass. They kicked him off of his A school list.
Wow.
They gave him a suspended bus down to E2. So when I heard all of that,
he got a real punishment.
Yes. I was content until this other person, and then, of course, I couldn't help but wonder, why did he get such a severity? Is it, obviously there's different people in charge by the time he came. So, why the disparity there? Because it's a huge disparity with the punishment. One was black, one was white. Granted, it was different leadership, and some people will do their job and some people won't. So, but it definitely left an imprint, for sure.
Definitely. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I'm surprised this white guy got any punishment for it to be in the late 80s. This was still an era where things were getting brushed under the rug. So I understand. Until you told that second story, we were both content with the first story.
Right. You're right. And then I hear about this other person, and I'm like, oh my, well, wait a minute.
Right. There was more that could have been done.
Guy, this guy got a slap on the wrist.
That sounds exactly like the military today. Unfortunately. You're right. That did kind of bring up the next question. When you brought complaints to your chain of command, do you feel that you were heard? Sounds like a little bit.
Yes, a little bit heard. I think if anything, and it depends on the command, but we can definitely, we meaning the organization, do a better job of following up with victims. Victims should never have to seek to find out what the status is.
Right.
There should be someone, there, making sure that they're heard and felt cared for with whatever they may be going through.
Agreed. All right. In the beginning of your career, when you needed guidance and mentorship, were those resources provided, or did you have to seek them out?
They definitely weren't provided. You kind of had to figure it out, take what you can from whoever you can. Mentorship was definitely not discussed, and you just kind of had to figure it out, make your career your own, and do the best you can, and seek out advice if you want. But I didn't have experiences where people were taking me under their wing early on in my career.
Because your first duty station was honor guard. All right. So it looks like the opportunity could have been there, but simply was not.
Right. And I think the only time I would say my first unofficial mentor. I had several unofficial mentors in my career later on, but early on, Mr. Matoyer, which I still call him Mr. Matoyer, but I think he was a JG when I was in the Honor Guard, and I loved the Honor Guard so much so that when it was time to go to A school, I didn't want to go just yet. I'm like, can I stay longer? And he said, no, it's time. It's time to move forward in your career. It's time to get promoted. This is not an advancement in your career to stay here. So that was the best thing he could have done for me. Best thing. And ironically, I ran into him. That was in 1989. I didn't see him again and ran into him, I believe it was in 2019 as a Master Chief, and I was able to give him one of my coins to say thank you for being the phenomenal mentor that you were early in my career. So,
come on.
30 plus years later.
What a lovely story. Jeez.
Yeah, never forget him.
You gave him a coin. That must have
I did.
That must have rocked his socks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much it meant to him, but it meant a lot to me to give him that and to say thank you for just giving me, doing something for me, better for me than I would have done for myself, and I needed that to continue to move forward.
Right on. All right.
And he was an African American as well. He was probably the first African American OIC in charge of the Honor Guard.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. I should have asked, was this a brother? It was. Yes. All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yay. Village. Which brings us to the next one. Have you been able to make friends with other Black lady veterans? And were you purposeful about building your village?
Well, being in Boston, I would say those numbers are very limited. Very limited. I think the first time I ever met a senior military woman enlisted, we were both senior chiefs. So it took that long for me to even come in contact with someone of the senior rank. So even in Boston, not that they're not here, but I definitely don't see a lot of African American veterans that are women. I do, however, as far as growing my village with mentorship, I started mentoring a teen girls group. I created a group 9 years ago, and originally, for my daughter, but my daughter aged out of it, and just there was such a great need to continue it, so I've continued to do that to date. And then a few years ago, I had another person come on board, basically, and start co-leading it with me. So it's probably 80% African American teen girls, and it's been great, very rewarding.
Lovely. But just to go back a little bit, did you say that you were a senior ranking enlisted woman before you were able to make friends with other Black women?
So let me rephrase that. As a seaman, as a E4,
mm-hmm.
I had the pleasure of serving with a first class. Can count on one hand how many African American women. As a seaman, we had an African American first class on the base. As a third class, I worked with an African American first class, and then two first classes, and one went on to make Chief Angela McShann, who you may have heard of, very famous in the Coast Guard because she was the first African American woman to make Master E9 in the Coast Guard. But I had the pleasure of working with her.
Nice.
And that was as an E4. So after that, no one African American that I worked directly with until I became a senior enlisted person myself.
Even as a yeoman, that's very interesting to hear, because the yeoman rate and the storekeeper rate are like the heaviest Black lady rates in the Coast Guard.
Mm-hmm.
So you weren't
exactly.
you weren't even able to meet other Black women within your own rate as a yeoman. And this is once again a Black lady heavy rate. Wow.
Yes. It was, as I think, and especially like I said, in the Boston area, seeing someone that was a chief or above would have been an anomaly,
wow.
Unfortunately.
So you were in Boston your whole career?
No, I came in Boston in '94. Never planned to stay, but continued to get moved around within the New England area. So the majority of my career was in the first district.
So from 94 to 2021, you were in Boston or the Boston area?
I was in, yes, other than 2 years in Maryland during that time, I was in, between Massachusetts, within Massachusetts, because I was in Woods Hole for a period, but the majority of my career has been in District 1.
Jeez, Master Chief, they really did not want you to see California.
No.
Or
Texas.
Texas.
Once I left California, I didn't. I tried to go back, and it didn't happen. No, you're staying here. What?
Like for your whole career. Wow.
Yes. So you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And no one could have told me that I was going to be staying in Boston.
Look, they didn't show you any other coast except the East Coast. To be the Coast Guard.
I know.
The Coast Guard said, Rashaun, this is the only coast you'll ever see.
Yes. I know. I was in Petaluma for 3 years, and once I left Petaluma, I never got a chance to come back west.
Wow. That's a lot of rain and cold weather.
Oh, boy, it sure is.
Master Chief, tell me a war story. Tell me about a time that you were tested but came out on top.
I could tell you many.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Tell me all you want.
But I will share one, which is the one that I probably try to share because it's still, unfortunately, a challenge in the military. Unfortunately, as a non-rate as well, I served, as I was about to go to A school, they gave me an opportunity to come over to the admin office to kind of learn a little bit, get a little, OJT before going to Yeoman A school. And unfortunately, that I worked with over there abused his power and was sexually harassing, to include myself. It was a horrible position to be in as a 20-year-old, and this person had to have been in their 40s or so at the time, and so it was just horrible. And even after a certain period, I found out that I could go back over to the honor guard. And I said, you know what? I don't have to stay here. I'm out of here. But unfortunately, at that time, I didn't feel like I had a voice that would be heard when this person, as a chief petty officer, was very well respected on the base. I felt like he practically walked on water. So for me, I had to, suffer in silence and just, it was about survival. I'm going to go back over to the honor guard. I'll keep my mouth shut, and I just want to, finish my time out and then leave. And even when I decided to go back over to the honor guard and he learned that I was going back over, he was very upset and proceeded to say as many negative things about me that he could, and primarily that I would never make it in the Coast Guard. I would never make it as a yeoman. So for me, once I left there, I never thought about him other than when I got promoted. Every time I got promoted, I remember I could hear his voice in my ear saying, "You'll never make it." So for me, it was kind of self-pride that you said I would never make it, and I'm making E5. And now I'm making E6, and then E7, and then so on. So for me, the victory was, not allowing this individual's opinion of me define who I was. I've never seen him since then, and unfortunately, I never talked about it for over 30 years. However, what made me decide to talk about it was going to I was at I think it was in 2019, earlier in the year, I was at a Dare to Lead workshop, and while in the workshop, this commander was speaking, and she said she was sitting on the plane with an E5 next to her, a male. He asked her the bizarre question, do you get sexually harassed every day? And she thought, what? What kind of question is that? And so she asked him, why would he ask that? And he said, well, one of my shipmates, she gets sexually harassed every day, and so I just thought that was something that women go through. And for her, that was kind of a wake-up call, like, oh my gosh, I was sexually harassed earlier in my career. I thought things had gotten better, but they hadn't. I've only promoted out of it. Nobody's doing that in front of me as a commander. And so when she said that, I couldn't help to go back to a women's leadership symposium that I had just attended, where a junior petty officer was sharing about many women telling her, 80% of her unit was telling her that they had gone through some sexual harassment. And I looked at her in disbelief, like, really, 80%? That's kind of a lot. So remembering that story and hearing the commanders talk, I said, oh my gosh, it's still happening. But nobody's doing it in front of me as an E9. And yet I didn't believe this young lady that it was 80% of her unit that had been sexually harassed. So as I came back from that Dare to Lead workshop and began to share that story and my kind of eye-opening experience, woman after woman after woman was sharing about their sexual harassment experience. And I thought, and you could still see the pain that was there. So fast forward, I'm at the flag conference where you've got all of the admirals, you've got all of the gold badges, you've got all of the senior civilians there. And I was tasked to be on the panel, a small number of us gold badges, to have a gold badge conference, a gold badge panel in front of all of the admirals, and we would share something that was kind of maybe on our heart, and then we'd open it up the floor to them. So I was initially not happy that I had gotten selected again, because I'm like, I did it last year. What about some of these other gold badges? But when I thought about it, I said, you know what? I don't believe in coincidences. I know exactly what I need to talk about. I need to talk about sexual harassment because I've got the ear of every senior person in the Coast Guard in this room, including the Combat and the Vice Commandant. But if I really want them to hear me, I need to start with my own story. So for the first time ever, I shared publicly my story along with some of the other ladies' stories because I felt like, you know what, many of them won't have this audience. I need to be a voice for them. And then I remember a senior civilian stood up, and she was shaking as she shared her own story. And she said, Master Chief, how can we stop this? And I said, ma'am, I don't know how we can stop it, but I do know that we can continue to share our stories. So for me, being able to take that power back and now, and knowing that I was silent for 30 years, and now I need to speak up, I need to speak out, and I need to be that voice to hopefully encourage and inspire other women to be a voice too, for, you know, an advocate and or whatnot. So I feel like that's one story that I have to continue to share, especially considering I experienced it and I was silent for so long. That's the longer version of your question.
That's a win, Master Chief. That was a win. Like, you took grapes and turned it into wine.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And thank you for sharing that story as well. Thank you for sharing it not just with me, but also with your audiences at those conferences.
No,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's incredibly important. Master Chief, do you feel that the way that you were treated improved with rank? And if so, do you think that improvement would have happened sooner had you been a different race and or gender?
So, sorry, I'm just digesting the question.
No, go ahead. Take your time.
I do believe people definitely treat you different with rank, 100%. You know, being in civilian clothes as opposed to being in uniform. When they don't know who you are, it's a huge difference. You know, as far as African American, I'm sure I surprised people being African American. You know, maybe especially if they didn't look at my first name. If they looked at my last name, I think it made a difference. You know, I shouldn't say made a difference. You know, people treated me different. People treated me a little bit better with my rank. Not that I was treated bad without the rank, but definitely better, 100%. I feel like not necessarily as an African American, but as a woman, I felt like you have to be assertive. You have to look people in the eye. You have to be confident, and you don't speak with this very soft voice. You speak with a very assured voice if you want to be heard. And you don't sit there and wait for someone to kind of invite you to the table. You invite yourself. Because I felt like as a woman, if I didn't, you know, seem more confident or more assertive, even if I didn't always necessarily feel it, I would not be as heard, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Has there ever been a tough situation that you were in where another sister helped you out, or a situation where you helped out another sister?
So I've not been in a situation where I've had people help me out, but unfortunately, just like I said, later on meaning from E5 and up, just didn't really have didn't really have any African American women in my life that were in the Coast Guard, that were in a mentorship type of role. However, and again, I didn't see a whole lot in Massachusetts area, but when given the opportunity, especially if I can think of one woman in particular. She was a single mom, and she was looking to separate from the Coast Guard. However, she didn't have any plans on what to do, any solid plans on what to do once she left. And I'm thinking, yes, is it difficult being a single mom in the Coast Guard? 100%. I'm a single mom in the Coast Guard. But actually, it was a couple of women that I'm thinking of now that we're talking about it. So just really trying to encourage them to, if they don't have a solid plan, don't leave before they have a solid plan, because it's not easy for anyone out there, especially as a single parent. You've got all the benefits and things like that. And there's a lot more support here. You just have to, unfortunately, sometimes the support may not knock on your door, but that's why networking is so important. Even with my younger cousin that's in the Coast Guard now, I tell her to, be engaged. Go to every event that you can go to, because networking is critical. You never know who you might meet, what resources you might stumble across that you can put in your back pocket to use later. But network. And that's kind of what I tried to encourage her to do, and to not. She had a really bad command, so I think that was the motivating factor. And the thing that I did try to tell her was, as an E4, that was probably the worst command that I had in my career. And I thought about leaving the Coast Guard because of that command, but I'm so glad I didn't allow that command to rob me of amazing opportunities that I would have later. So sometimes it's difficult, but try to ride out the commands. If you have a bad command, try to ride them out, because it's not going to be forever, and you don't want to make a decision that will impact the rest of your life because of some not so pleasant people, leaders, showing lack of leadership.
Heard that. Bad commands don't last. Unfortunately, good commands don't last either. Nothing lasts forever.
Exactly.
I was once told, if there's something you like about the Coast Guard, or if there's something you don't like about the Coast Guard, just wait. It'll change. Right, exactly. I am so sorry that you have not had that you didn't have a lot of exposure to a lot of Black ladies while you were in. And once again, it's probably because of your location. You keep saying that you were in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm thinking that's a very low Black population, period. So there's probably not a lot of each other. There's probably not a lot of Black people just fighting to go to Boston, Massachusetts.
No. I loved asking the question when I would meet people that would come up there. So, was this on your list? Was this at the top? Because 9 times out of 10 it wasn't. So.
And the Coast Guard just kept you there. They were like, "No, we got one. Let's keep her in place."
Exactly. So when others would come, you're like wanting to hold. Please stay. Stay with us, please. And
oh man.
Nope.
And this has nothing to do with anything, but since you were a yeoman in the early 90s, did you work with typewriters?
I did. Yep, we sure did. And that's what we had to do in A school. We had to make sure we knew how to type, and then we had typewriters in the office. It sounds so ancient now. I feel very old.
No, I feel like your typing skills may be better than those going through A school now.
Oh, it was crazy. You got timed. You could only make so many mistakes. All that stuff. So. Oh wow, it's interesting.
It is interesting. Tell me something you wish you had known before joining the service.
I think I would say the networking piece was something that I figured out later. I would have loved to have known that early on, because, again, I think it can create way more opportunities. I think something that I learned later on, I grasped it better later on. which I wish I would have known, thought about it more, even though I was kind of doing it already, but just the value of continuing to step outside of your comfort zone, because that's where the growth happens. And then once you get comfortable there, continue to step out, be in a continual pursuit of that.
Do you feel that you were a better leader than the ones you grew under? If you don't say yes to this, I'm going to hang up this phone right now, Rashaun. I swear to God.
Well, I would say in some ways, yes.
Yes.
In some ways, yes. Because there were some leaders that, I thought were fantastic. I will never forget them, because they were amazing leaders that really stood out in my career. So if anything, I stand on the shoulders of them. But of course, there were some others that completely, didn't do well with the power that they were given. Right on.
You retired as a gold badge. You're one of a kind. I'm going to say that you were a better leader than the ones you grew up under. This is just me looking from the outside.
Yeah, you want to be the change that you wish you would have had, in some cases. So
absolutely,
that was my goal.
Absolutely. Are there any sisters in service that inspire you? And they could be in any branch. They could be retired, active, whatever. Are there any sisters in service that inspire you?
I would say yes. I'm thinking of three off the top of my head, and one would be Angela McShann. She was
right on.
She was phenomenal. Mitzi Robinson.
Okay.
She was amazing, and someone that you just interviewed, who was the first African American woman to in the SS, because she was an SS at one time, Lisa Smallwood.
Lisa Spotwood. I love her.
Thank you.
I love her. She's not only a wonderful leader and a wonderful person, she's just a hoot. Like, she's just nice to talk to. Also a Virgo.
Yes, and as much as I have, chatted with her here and there over the years, I never got to see her. I knew her more from social media, and I got to meet her for the first time when they had the commissioning ceremony for Angela McShann, who, again, was the first black woman to make E9. But unfortunately, within the same year, she passed away. She had cancer of the sinuses, and which was very bizarre.
Yeah.
And we lost her, but she was such an inspirational leader that they created the Inspirational Leader Angela McShann Leadership Award. So someone gets it every year, which was amazing. So when they decided to name a cutter after her, that was huge. And I knew, you know what? I'm going to 7 hours down and 7 hours back, but it's worth every minute on the road because I cannot miss this event. And it was almost like a Black Coast Guard family reunion. I saw people that I hadn't seen for 30 years. And there was, at that time, I was the 11th African-American woman to make Master Chief, and there still haven't been a whole lot since then.
You are correct.
But I was the 11th, and there were 7 of us at this event. So
wow.
That was huge. I felt like I was on hallowed ground, standing on the shoulders of these phenomenal African-American men and women that paved the way for us. It was amazing to be there and to be with these folks. I'll say really quick, I'm taking a picture with Master Chief Adawa Hendricks. She was another one that had made Gold Badge, and then she was made and worked for 3 stars, so that was
nice.
Even bigger. So her and I and another African-American Master Chief were together. Mitzi Robinson, retired warrant officer, was about to take a picture of us. And this young African-American, I don't know if he was like a E3 or E4, but he walked by us several times. And eventually he said, "Is there any way I can get a picture of you?" And we're not thinking about it while we're taking the pictures. It's like, this guy probably hasn't even seen a Black E9 let alone to read right in front of him. And so Missy Robinson said, how about we do one better? Why don't I take the picture and you get in it? Because he said, I really want to send my mom this photo. So I just thought, I don't know, that was just very emotional to even, think about. I never saw that when I was, in his shoes. And then to be surrounded by all these leaders, it was motivational and inspirational to me. I can't even imagine being a junior person. Like, where are all these people at? I've never seen this many, so it was really, really cool to be there. Very special.
Y'all blew that young man's mind.
Yeah, it was really neat.
As an E4, the first black lady E9 that I ever saw made E9 right there at the base that I was at. So, of course, I'm going to go to the ceremony. You may know who she is because I feel like all of y'all know each other. Her name is Nia Stimley. She is either an IT or an IS, but she was also the first either IT or IS. I think it's IT. She was the first IT black lady to make E9 as well.
Smart. And she's on the West Coast, right?
She is.
She was on the West Coast?
She is. I think she's on the West Coast. I think she's at Petaluma right now. I'm not sure. I'm wondering if she was the one in the photo with us. That's why I'm asking, because I know she was the person that we took the photo with. She was on the West Coast. I don't know what year that was, but maybe it wasn't her. But she not a lot of us, that's for sure. She made Master Chief in, I think, 2017.
Okay, that might have been her. This was 2019.
Okay. See, I got a feeling all y'all know each other. It's a very small group.
And Lisa Stoutwood knows all of us.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Yeah. She's the historian.
She really, really is. And also, once again, she's just fun to talk to. I spoke to her maybe 2 weeks ago, or no, like last week. I spoke to her last week. She's just fun to talk to.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's say you were just starting your life out on your own, and you were presented with the chance to join the service for the first time. Knowing what you know now, would you still join?
100%, yes. Yeah, it changed my life, so for sure.
You had a pretty phenomenal career, in spite of always being the black person around in your office.
That's for sure. No, thank you. It's been no complaints. I would definitely rejoin again.
Right on. I think you may have already answered this next question, but I do have to ask. If you had a daughter or any impressionable black girl in your life that you cared about, and she was considering a life in the military, would you try to talk her out of joining?
Would not. As a matter of fact, our teen girls, we just took them on a excursion, air quotes, to get a tour of one of the new fast response cutters here in Boston. We worked with the recruiting office and got some Coast Guard swag and took them there just to kind of introduce them to it. So, yeah, I would definitely. I'm more concerned about women, and I want to have more conversations with them than I would the guys.
Understandable,
coming in,
of
but
course.
I would definitely tell them it can be a good career choice.
Understandable. All right. Recruitment and retention is down across all the branches and with all demographics. Black women are not excluded from that. This was true even before the pandemic. Why do you think black women are so disinterested in joining the military?
I think like anyone, it's like, what's in it for me, And I think if you don't see a strong representation of yourself, period. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I don't think there's enough visibility out there. And like, even when I was in the honor guard, I mean, they would put me on the front row every time for ceremonies. I know why they did that, It's like, they didn't put Tina on the front row every time, but I was on the front row every time. A figurative name, but I think it's because there's just I don't think there's a good representation of black women in the Coast Guard, especially on the enlisted side. And so if people don't see reflections of themselves in an organization, it's like, maybe that one's not for me.
Very true. Master Chief, if you were conducting this interview from where I'm sitting, what question would you have asked you that I did not ask you?
Let me see. I think I thought about that one too, and I did come up with an answer. Let's see if I can remember it. I would say the question that you didn't ask. Let me think for one quick second. I knew I should have wrote the answers down. I had them in my head.
Well, I didn't ask you your favorite Beyonce song, so you can tell me that while you're thinking of this.
Yes. I would say maybe what's meant the most to me in my career.
Hey, Master Chief, what's meant the most to you in your career?
I would say, for sure, having my daughter.
Right on.
And secondly is the amazing opportunities that I've had to meet some incredible people. And I can even learn from the bad leadership as well, but I feel like the Coast Guard changed my life for sure. And I would not have been able to have the opportunities. I might even be the person that I am today if I would have chosen a different path. Very blessed by the people that I've had the opportunity to know and serve with. Nice.
So it was an overall good experience.
Definitely.
That's what's up. And Master Chief, you still did not answer what your favorite Beyonce song was. And we're not going to be able to end this phone call until you do.
Well, you know what? I think one of my favorite ones, which is probably the one that I've listened to the most, is, what's the name of it? I can hear it in my head. I dare not sing it and embarrass myself. Halo.
Okay.
Like, no, I could not sing the song. I'm like,
you know, if you would have, I would have. You know, I'm recording this, so I'm just.
I assume so.
Look, so I'm telling you right now, if you had started singing, that's the part I would have purposely kept in. They're like, no, they need to hear this.
Yes, I'm like, do not embarrass yourself, please. Halo was definitely a song I really have liked for a long time.
Love it. I will tell Beyonce tomorrow. I'm kidding. All right.
Yeah, but no, that's great. And I will say kind of one of my themes, if I can kind of
go for it.
Close with that is years ago, I used to. I'm a lover of quotes. If anybody that has been around me long enough, they know I'm always sharing some quotes. But I had added one to my email many years ago, and before I was gonna, I do it, but this one I just could not shake. I'm thinking, you know what? I need to keep this one here because not so much for the reader, but for me, because it's been kind of something that I've wanted to live by. But it says, when the sun sets on your life, may it be said that you made a difference. And so for me, I feel like that's what life is about a lot, of making a difference and making an impact in others. So I love that quote. And so for me, it's a reminder of, refocusing when I get out of focus, making a difference.
I love that. And that is a phenomenal quote. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Is that what you would like to leave our audience with? Because that is my final question. Is there anything you would like to leave our audience with?
Not to belabor it, as people say that and then they do it anyway, but I would say the quote that I would leave with is the quote that I was given when I was going through the Chiefs Academy, and it is a phenomenal quote for stepping out of your comfort zone, because I think if you can continue to do that, you can continue to grow. But for anybody that's gone through the Chiefs Academy, they remember the high rope exercises. I remember standing on the telephone pole being scared to death. And the instructor gave us a quote on graduation day. She said, I want you to think about the high rope exercises, and then I want you to think about life. And as she said that, she said, the distance is so frightening from where I am to where I want to be, but because of all that I may become, I will close my eyes and weep.
Oh, I love that one. You do have some gems. Thank you for that one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Master Chief, I know that you are a very busy lady and that you have carved out a piece of your schedule just for me in this interview. And thank you so much for that. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're on a different time zone. So
I'm sure you're tired.
No, not at all. I went to sleep last night pumped up for this interview. So I was like very like excited to wake up and be able to conduct it. It's like I get to talk to Rashaun Morris tomorrow, Master Chief. I get to talk to this lady that Master Chief Tyrone Anderson just he blew you up. He's nothing but good things. Of course he's gonna say a lot of good things. That's just the type of person he is. But also being Facebook friends with you is I was pumped for this interview just because I knew who I was about to talk to. This is
no, that's very seriously. That means that touches my heart big time. And please, when you talk to Tyrone, and I'll send him a message too, but tell him thank you, and I didn't pay him. No, Tyrone is awesome. Had a chance to serve with him many moons ago here in Boston, and cross paths, on occasion here and there too since then. So, but
yeah, he's a cool dude.
Tell him thank you. He is. He's awesome.
So thank you.
You are too for doing what you do. I think this is fantastic.
Thank you so much, Master Chief. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna go ahead and let you get back to your day then, Miss Busy Lady.
Yes. Thank you so much, and please, I'm going to stay up on what you post because I think it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I will continue to share that in different threads so that just brings more visibility and encourage and hopefully inspires others with what you're doing. So,
I appreciate it. I post every week, so you got a couple episodes to share with your friends.
Oh, awesome! That sounds great. Well, enjoy your weekend, and I'm sure I will see you online.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay, take care.
You do the same, Master Chief. All right.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye now. And to our audience, I would also like to bid you a farewell and goodbye now. And that concludes this episode of the Seasoned Vet Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. And a special thank you to Command Master Chief Rashaun Morris for sharing her story and taking the time to make this interview possible. Now, if you are or know a Black Lady veteran who would like to sit down with me and be a part of the show, please email me at seasonedvetpodcast@gmail.com, or you can call or text message me at 713-254-0970. You can also find, follow, and inbox me, The Seasoned Vet, across all platforms of social media. At Real Seasoned Vet on Twitter, at Seasoned Vet Podcast on Instagram, at Seasoned Vet Podcast on TikTok, at Seasoned Vet on YouTube, Seasoned Vet on Facebook. Y'all, I'm so out there, I'm even on Spoutable. That's at The Seasoned Vet on Spoutable. Now, if you like what you heard, please like it, share it, rate it, and leave a good review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And if you're hearing this episode on the day that it drops, then you're listening to it on September 18th, 2023, the 53rd anniversary of the passing of legendary rock star Jimi Hendrix. Thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, fall out.